Finds Strus back to Larry. There it is, three-pointer. Won't go. Rebound, Caldwell Pope. They're not going to foul. The Heat will let it play out. It's over. At last, the long wait is over. After 47 years, the Denver Nuggets can finally call themselves NBA champions.
You vowed to come back even better than you were before. Can you describe to me what this championship journey has been like for you?
Benedetto with the Denver Gazette. Jamal, Nikola famously said that he expected you to suck for the first 20 games of the regular season, and there was all the talk about, is Jamal back, is he not back? How frustrating was that for you to deal with, and does that make this moment even sweeter to kind of have people, I guess, questioning your ability to return?
Yeah, I knew I was going to suck for the first few games. Like, I had to live with that. I knew I wasn't going to put up 40, 50 points in the first couple games. I always say, if you go back to the first game in Utah, I picked up the ball in the paint like 5 times I could count. Like, I was so lost. I had never felt being that lost on the court before. I just didn't want to go into the paint or jump or land or feel contact, and just how far I've come from that moment.
You know, Pat Riley said something many years ago. I used to have it up on my board when I was a head coach in Sacramento, and I talked about the evolution in this game and how you go from a nobody to an upstart, and you go an upstart to a winner, and a winner to a contender, and a contender to a champion. And the last step is, after you're a champion, is to be a dynasty. So we're not satisfied. We accomplished something this franchise has never done before, but we have a lot of young, talented players in that locker room. And I think we just showed through 16 playoff wins what we're capable of on the biggest stage in the world. And the best part about it is the people I just did that with. I mean, I love those guys. I love my coaches. Stan and Josh Kroenke are incredible owners. Their support, their continued belief. Calvin Booth, first year as a GM. And I just have to say, on a personal note, a huge thank you to my mother and father. You know, I just spoke to them, let them know how much they're a part of this. Their love and support all along has meant the world to me. My beautiful wife, Jocelyn, my 2 daughters, Caitlin and Bridget. I'm a really blessed person, and I'm really enjoying this moment. So don't screw it up by asking a stupid question.
On June 12, 2023, the Denver Nuggets closed out the Miami Heat in 5 games on their home floor to win the NBA championship. And I gotta say, it's one of the most impressive playoff runs that I've seen in a while. The Nuggets faced plenty of adversity, plenty of people doubting them, and now that they got the job done, hopefully people will start to put some respect on their name. But I kind of want to go back to where everything started with this team, before Nikola Jokic broke out as a star, before they drafted Jamal Murray, before they picked up Mike Malone. Back when this team was looked at more of like an afterthought than an actual contender to win a title. And the best place to start is around 2011. That was around the time that they just got off of Carmelo Anthony. They got back a bunch of assets from the Knicks, and it looked like even after Carmelo Anthony got traded, they were still going to go into a more contending direction. And at the end of the 2011 season, they finished with a 50-32 record, but unfortunately for them, they lost in the first round. And that was kind of the case for the next couple of years. In 2012, they went 38-28, which under normal circumstances would be the equivalent to having a 50-win season. And once again, they were knocked out in the first round. And then 2013, they had their best season, winning 57 games, and they got knocked out in the first round by the Warriors. So it was very clear that the Denver Nuggets needed to make a change, and they needed to find a new direction, in which they ended up going to a more rebuilding direction after that year. And after 2014, the Nuggets wouldn't make it back to the playoffs until 2019. And during that 5-year stretch, they would go 36-46, 30-52, 33-59, 33-49, 40-42, and 46-36. And if you you notice a common theme, the Nuggets weren't outright tanking. They weren't trying to get the #1 pick. They were instead acquiring as much young talent as possible, giving them a lot of reps, giving them a lot of minutes, and seeing what guys they can bet on and what other guys they can let go. During that time, the Nuggets drafted both Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell, but traded both of them to the Jazz. They traded their star player Andre Iguodala for a 2018 first rounder in Randy Foye. In 2014, they drafted Nikola Jokic 41st overall during a Taco Bell commercial. In that same draft that they got Jokic, they traded for Jusuf Nurkic and Gary Harris, who would serve as integral parts of their rebuilding stage. And then in the next year, they would go on to draft Emmanuel Mudiay 7th overall, and the vision for him was that he was going to be their star point guard of the future. But after year one, Mudiay didn't really show the star potential that the Nuggets saw in him. So in the next draft, they drafted Jamal Murray 7th overall in the same place that they drafted Mudiay. And not even a year after drafting Jamal Murray, they would send Mudiay away to the Knicks. In that same 2016 draft, they picked up Malik Beasley, who would be a really huge steal for them at 19th. And then 2 years later, they would get the ultimate steal in Michael Porter Jr. And yes, I know, granted, if Michael Porter Jr. wasn't injured in his 1 year at Missouri, he would have definitely went top 3. But the fact that the Nuggets were able to swoop in and take him at 14th was very impressive, and that's a really good drafting job on their part. And that's always one thing that I find so impressive with teams like the Bucks and the teams like the Nuggets, is that they can always just find diamond in the rough kind of guy, the guy that nobody's looking at, and they can take that guy and they can mold him into somebody who can help you win a championship. Throughout this period from 2014 to 2019, the highest place that the Nuggets got was 7th in the draft. And by 2017, there was a huge change in the vision that the Nuggets had for this team. By that point, it was Jokic's 3rd season, and he was really showing out off the bench. And 2017 was when the Nuggets decided to finally go into the Nikola Jokic direction. If you watch some of Jokic's early tape, you'll see a lot of the similarities that you'll see with him now. He always had that great footwork, he always had that great touch, and it was very apparent that he was going to be a really good playmaker. But that was only if you're willing to give him the ball. Before the franchise decided to bet on him, Jokic was putting up very promising numbers off the bench. But on February 13th, 2017, the Denver Nuggets decided to do away with Jusuf Nurkic, trading him to Portland for Mason Plumlee and finally giving Jokic the opportunity that he wanted. And you can see the way his numbers jumped up afterwards. And Jokic isn't the only one who had a steady progression into superstardom. Jamal Murray went from averaging 9.9 points per game to 16.7 the next season, 18.2 the next season, and by 2020 he was nearly averaging 19.5 on good efficiency. And let's talk about Bubble Murray real quick. Jamal Murray throughout the entire 2020 playoffs averaged 26, 6, and 5 on nearly 55% field goal shooting. He had arguably one of the greatest playoff runs in the modern era. Versus Utah, he averaged 36 and 5, having 2 50-point games in that series. And then against the Clippers, while his numbers did dip down a little bit, he still had a masterclass closeout game 6 where he dropped 40 points. And then against the Lakers, their biggest challenge yet, he averaged 25, 7, and 4 on 52% from the field. And again, in the previous playoff run, Jamal Murray was hooping. Only difference was, because it's the Denver Nuggets, nobody was paying attention to it. Against the Portland Trailblazers, he had some really good games like Game 3 and Game 4, where he dropped 34 points respectively in each game. And then in the 2021 season, coming off of that amazing playoff run, for the first time in his career, he averaged 20 points per game and shot above 40% from three-point land. What makes it tough though is that he ended up tearing his ACL in mid-March, which ended up keeping him out for the next year and a half. And this led to a bunch of people asking the question if Jamal Murray's playoff run in 2020 was just the bubble, was it a fluke, despite him proving that he's been a great playoff performer for years. But he didn't let all that criticism get to him, as in 2023, his comeback year, he averaged 24 and 6 on identical shooting splits. Coming off of a year where he did not play, he was in constant trade rumors. People were suggesting that he would get traded because the Nuggets would need an upgrade at point guard, and people didn't really believe in him being a championship level point guard. People wondering if he'll even be the same after his injury. And even with all that doubt, he still showed up in this playoff run, averaging nearly 28 a game. So I completely understand him being very emotional after winning the title, because he had to go through so much adversity to get there. And I also want to take some time to acknowledge and highlight some of the important role players that played a part in the Nuggets winning a title as well. The first player I want to highlight is Aaron Gordon, as he was a very impactful defender. He was versatile, he can guard 1 through 4, he was physical, he had great defensive instincts, and not only that, he was a very serviceable offensive piece, as he was a great lob threat for Jokic. He was a decent catch and shoot player, averaging averaging nearly 35% from 3, and he showed that he has some playmaking in him, as he shows that he's very capable of making the extra pass. The Nuggets were able to acquire him in the 2021 trade deadline, trading RJ Hampton, Gary Harris, and a 2025 first for him. And while I don't think by that point the Nuggets were serious contenders yet, I think they would have given teams like Phoenix a lot more trouble if they had Jamal Murray healthy in that playoff run. Because in the 8 games that Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon got to play together, the Nuggets were looking pretty dangerous, I'm not gonna lie to you. And even if you want to look at the defensive numbers, Gordon definitely had an impact on this team's defense, as their defensive rating almost went up 2 points after he got traded there. Another really impactful defender was Bruce Brown, as he showed that he was able to guard the opposing team's best perimeter threat. He was really good at stealing the ball, had active hands, and it felt like you could put him on anybody under 6'8". Not to mention he hustles a lot. He always does the dirty work, he goes after 50-50 balls, and he always gets offensive rebounds, which are really impactful. And he also fixed the problem with the Nuggets where they were struggling with pick and roll defense. As I mentioned in another video, the Nuggets point of attack defenders really struggled with getting beat on every pick and roll, which forced Jokic to have to step up. This was a big reason why the Phoenix Suns swept them in 2021 and the Golden State Warriors beat them in 2022. But once they added Bruce Brown, a guy who can defend the pick and roll properly, that problem was pretty much non-existent. And also, if you look at how he played in the 2023 finals, he just played amazing defense, and he had a big game 4, putting up 21 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists. In that game, he hit some really important 3-pointers, he attacked the rim a lot, and he did a good job of putting the ball on the floor. KCP, who is arguably the Nuggets' best offensive weapon off the bench, averaged nearly 11 points a steal per game and 47% from the field and 42% from 3. He was a great spot-up option for Nikola Jokic. He could put the ball on the floor. He was a good slasher. He could play great defense. He was just a perfect role player to add to this team. And also another underrated part about KCP's impact was that he also had the experience of playing in the finals before, which definitely had an impact on this team. Christian Braun had a really great series as well. You wouldn't expect a rookie to provide very valuable minutes in an NBA Finals series, but since DeAndre Jordan really isn't that great anymore, Braun was the best option they had at the backup center spot. And again, he did a really good job providing valuable minutes while Nikola Jokic was in foul trouble. He played great defense on Jimmy Butler and great defense as a whole, and he had a very impactful game 3 as he put up 15 points. And the last role player I want to talk about is Jeff Green. He was just the embodiment of veteran leadership. In that Lakers series, when the Lakers made that adjustment to put Rui Hachimura on Nikola Jokic on the top of the key, Green was a really good substitution for Aaron Gordon, as he could knock down spot-up threes at a very high rate. Also, not to mention he could play some defense as well. And back to Nikola Jokic, the dude had one of the most dominant playoff runs I've seen in a long time. He averaged a near triple-double on some of the greatest efficiency I've seen. I mean, 46% from 3 just makes absolutely no sense, especially from a big man, shooting nearly 55% from the floor. Even if you look at some of his individual series numbers, I mean, his Phoenix numbers make absolutely no sense. 34 points per game on nearly 60% from the floor just makes no sense. And he led in points, rebounds, assists, and triple doubles. Jokic had the most triple doubles in an entire postseason run, having 3 more than Wilt Chamberlain, who had 7. And when I look at this Nuggets culture and this Nuggets team as a whole, it's the definition of trust the process, not the way the Sixers did it, where they just traded every single piece they had and just tanked for a couple years and just put a team together and hoped it worked. Nah, this Denver Nuggets team is the definition of the process. Not only did they make the right trades, but they also selected the right guys on this team like Jamal Murray and MPJ, and they saw potential in a guy in Nikola Jokic who was riding the bench for the first 3 years of his career. And when they actually gave him minutes, he showed his impact on the floor. And even when they had to go through adverse situations, when Jamal Murray got hurt, they trusted that he would be back healthy, back to his normal self, even though they had the option of trading him for a guy like Damian Lillard. That instead of waiting on MPJ to get healthy, they could have shopped him. I mean, let's not act like MPJ is not a young player with a ton of value. I know there was a team in the NBA who would think that MPJ could be a star player on their team, but instead the Nuggets decided to hold on to him. And even with Mike Malone, even after 2021, when they got embarrassed in the second round, they could have fired him and they could have gotten a guy like Nick Nurse or Doc Rivers, one of these big name head coaches, and they could have been one of those teams that fires their coach even after things go wrong and made him the scapegoat. But no, they decided to trust Mike Malone with this team, and here they are now. They're NBA champions. Even when you look at the tenure of every single player and the coach on this team, Mike Malone, he's been here for 8 seasons. Jokic has been here for 8 seasons. Jamal Murray has been here for 7 seasons. They let the culture develop. They allowed for the team to build continuity and chemistry with each other, and it ended up producing results. And I definitely think that NBA teams are going to see what the Nuggets did, and they're going to follow the blueprint. And when you look back at the 2023 NBA playoffs, you'll realize that Denver was the obvious pick to win it all this year. They were the healthiest team, unlike Phoenix and Golden State. They built continuity, unlike Phoenix, and they had some of the most reliable players in the league, unlike New Orleans. And hopefully now that they're a championship team, hopefully now that Nikola Jokic is the finals MVP, that they finally put some respect on them. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. If you enjoyed, make sure to hit that like button. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe. More videos will be on the way soon, and I'm out. Peace.